my name is Anthony Andrews, co-founder and creative director of We Are Parable. And in association with Leytonstone Loves Film and The Barbican, we present The Film Studio. The Film Studio is a series of talks with film industry experts who talk about their careers and their experience, careers that you may not have heard about in the film industry. Next up, we have Iyare Igiehon. Iyare is the Inclusion and Partnerships Event Executive at the British Film Institute, as well as being the founder of Soul Celebrate Connect and the co-founder of Soul Film Fest. We speak to Iyare about his advice for creatives, his experience to date, his growth mindset, and some of the qualities you need to succeed in the career he has. Iyare, how are you?
I'm very well, Anthony. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for being a part of the Film Studio. I mean, you were one of the first people that we wanted to reach out to because you're like, no, honestly, honestly you were, because I think the whole point of the Film Studio is really to explore the different types of careers that exist within the film industry that people don't necessarily know about. So what I wanted to do was speak to some of the people that we've collaborated with and really get a sense of some of the things they do on a day-to-day basis and advice and experience that they can offer young people on how they get into the industry. So
this will be brief then.
This will be a very brief conversation. Knowing you, it'll be extremely brief. But let's start with you introducing yourself to the people. Can you tell us a little bit about you?
So basically, I do a few different bits and pieces, and there are bits and pieces there are new things that are coming that I'm not sure if I'm allowed to even say that I'm doing yet. So I don't know what to do about that. But basically, at the moment, I work for the BFI in their inclusion department. And what I do there is I am technically known as the Inclusion Partnerships and Events Exec. And so what that means is that I work with the rest of the inclusion department to collaborate and partner with outside organizations and across the BFI to promote and develop diversity and inclusion. So that looks like everything from putting on events, supporting practitioners in terms of interacting with the BFI. There's a bunch of stuff. And then obviously, as you well know, I also am involved in Soul and Soul Fest. That requires mostly staying out of you and Tian's way and letting you get on with it is mostly what it seems to be the job. So yeah, and so essentially what that is and where Soul comes from is, I came into the film business or started to kind of circle the film drain, perhaps, as someone coming from music and coming from radio. And that's how I originally got started. I was a radio presenter, and I got asked to kind of come along and present some live events with the BFI's education department. As my radio kind of career did that, my kind of interest in film did that because mostly because I had no choice. Do you know what I mean? Man's got to eat, you know what I'm saying? And so, what was happening is that as I started to get into film and started to do things like that, and I realized that obviously I have a degree in music and A-level in dance, and I've written newspaper columns and presented radio shows and performed stand-up comedy, and film seemed like, hold on a minute, this is a way to bring all those disparate strands of different things that I've done over the years together. But what I realized as I started to get into it is that if I suddenly switch to I'm a film director now or I'm a film producer now, my kids are going to starve to death, right? And so the Soul thing came out of the necessity of that. It was a couple of, as often is the case, a few things kind of collide at a time and you realize, hold on, this is a thing. So the things that happened is, one, I needed to know more about the film industry. I needed to know more people. I needed to understand more about what was going on. Two, I had met Nuru because we were collaborators at the BFI as freelancers, and we had this connection to the BFI's education department. And three, we were approached by a guy called Lawrence, who essentially had, we'd had this chat, and he was just like, how does anybody get a film on at the BFI? And those three things kind of smushed together at the same time. And we realized that actually we could use our connection at the BFI to solve those two things, to meet and learn more, and to create this opportunity for people to get their films shown there. We didn't know anybody. We didn't have any kind of influence. We had no power. We had no money. And so all we did was we just said, look, if you come along to an event, we'll show some films and you can kind of network with each other. And that was the initial kind of offer. And it's just kind of gradually built little by little. After a little while, it became clear that there was enough interest and enough going on to maybe kind of sustain a festival, sustain something in the actual public program at the BFI. It took a while to learn how that worked. Two, it took a while to kind of convince them that it was worth doing and that we were people that they could rely on to do that. And by the time we finally kind of got that, we were in a position where it's like, okay, so we've kind of gotten into this position, but we don't necessarily have all the skills that we need, all the knowledge, all the connections, all the resources. And so that's when we came and talked to you and to Akua and to Priscilla and eventually built this new thing, the Soul Festival. And that's where that kind of is at the moment. And then hopefully, you know, work going forward is just going to allow me to kind of build upon this whole idea of kind of platforming Black voices in film.
I feel like you've answered about 4 of my questions that I've got now. So I've got to think on my feet. This is good. This is a good thing. You know, there's a lot in there, but I think what I'm really interested in is finding out about, like, what was it about film? So as you mentioned, the radio, you know, the interest in radio potentially went down and the film interest went up. But what was it? Was there like an initial spark that you could point to be like, yeah, film could be a viable, like, avenue for me to pursue?
For me, it wasn't like a kind of a light bulb moment, like the sort of moment you'd see in a film, right? It was more a sort of a gradual thing. So what happened was I was producing radio shows and there was this insistence on 360 content. It's got to be 360 content. You've got to make the show and do the website and blah, blah, blah. And so I had to learn some video stuff in order to just be able to deliver a radio show.
Sure.
And so that's when I first kind of picked up video cameras seriously. I mean, I played around with them as a kid or whatever, but like in terms of a work thing, I'd never really used a video camera. So now I need to kind of learn a little bit about editing and all those sorts of things. So I had to kind of pick up a bit just to kind of keep the radio stuff going as a radio producer. So that happened. And then obviously this whole thing, this sideline of kind of going into the BFI and leading events. So I would go in as a presenter and I'd say, hi, young people, welcome to the BFI. And today we're going to learn about such and such. And here's a film director, here's a film producer, here's a film sound recordist, here is a screenwriter. And we talk and, you know, as all of those kids were in those sessions learning something, I was learning things. And it's just, you get to a point where it's like, okay, you see, you keep seeing people, you start thinking, hold on a minute, I could do that.
Yeah.
You sit in enough of these kind of sessions, hearing about how people make a film or watching people teach people how to make a film. Then you start teaching people yourself and you start learning bits and pieces and you learn enough so that you know just a bit more than the people in the class about a certain thing. And you keep doing that. And eventually, hold on a minute, I can operate some lights, I can operate a camera, I can cut together some video basically. And, you know, and so all of a sudden I was like, just kind of combining all of that sort of stuff. So often you'll see a video that I've produced and you look, I was like, oh, I edited it, but I also made the music in GarageBand, you see what I mean, and wrote the jokes or something. It just seemed, all of the things seemed to kind of come together. But it was a gradual moment. I'd love to be able to tell you, I watched The Good, the Bad and the Ugly when I was 12. And I realized that if you're going to shoot, talk. But it wasn't like that, which it was.
That really like sweet bit of content that we could just
yeah, sorry, I'm reasoning.
It's fine.
But it was gradual, it was just a little bit at a time. And then what's really happened was that whenever I was trying to help other people do it, it seemed to work better. Do you see what I mean? So I was trying to do stuff to kind of learn myself and develop myself and whatever. But whenever I kind of turned it and started to try and help other people, it just went further, it moved faster, it just gathered more momentum. And so it's kind of been that sort of a thing. So I think hopefully, you know, I always hope that with the Soul brand, that eventually we'll start producing stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Rather than just showing people stuff or just kind of doing educational stuff and developmental stuff, that will actually start to kind of work with some of those people that we've helped along and start to produce brand new stuff. So that's the kind of the dream. Yeah, and hopefully that will happen one day.
And you spoke a lot there about how you've continued to teach yourself new things in order to, you know, progress your career and progress the amount of avenues and things that you're interested in. And I'm quite interested to find out where that growth mindset comes from and how important that's been throughout your career.
That comes from my parents, but my mum in particular. When I was a kid, a small child, my mum was a midwife, and she kind of leveraged the situation in the health service where she was being made redundant, and basically on the way out got them to pay for her to do a master's degree, which she did. We didn't really understand it at the time, but we all kind of changed our schedule and changed everything around so that my mum could do her master's degree. And then when she got her master's degree, she took over, she went to work in education. And she ended up running a department at a kind of FE college, you know? And so it was always this thing that, like, you know, one, I think we knew that a lot of the time, if you didn't do things for yourself, you weren't going to have that thing. So do you see what I mean? My brother was mad on cars. And I remember watching, you know, this is my younger brother, and he was mad on cars, and I watched him change like a brake cylinder. And my sister, you know, my sister can, you know, my sister is a management consultant who can lay tiles and wire up a kitchen, and so you know what I mean? So it's like, so I'm probably the least practical, but I kind of maybe, okay, I'll write something, or I'll try and make a bit of music, or I'll try and pull together a film, or I'll pull together some people or whatever. It's just this constant thing of kind of understanding that at any point, the thing that you're doing might come to an end. And so you've just got to kind of be ready to adapt and rework things and just rejig things to just keep moving forwards. Do you see what I mean? So, but I think it comes from watching my mum just kind of go through a complete, total career change.
So, I mean, that's obviously taking you to Soul, Celebrate, Connect. And I was wondering if we could spend a little bit of time about understanding how you kind of, I guess, organise that to happen at the BFI South Bank, to have on a quarterly basis short, you know, filmmakers who are creating shorts to kind of talk to one another, show their work. I mean, it's an amazing achievement.
There was a very deliberate design of the events because we didn't know anybody. So we couldn't invite the industry down because we didn't know the industry at the time. We didn't know. So basically what we thought was the thing that we can do is create a space where we can all get to know one another better. Mm-hmm. It becomes very clear when you start to kind of study the film industry, the screen industries in general, but the film industry in particular, that if you are not part of the right networks, you are not part of it. How do you fix that? Well, you basically, all you can do is make the most of your own networks. And what the idea behind the Soul Celebrate Connect, it was about celebrating our work and connecting ourselves together. And we figured that perhaps we could mitigate the networks, mitigate the old school tie, mitigate the old boys network by building our own node on the network, by regularly connecting. So that was the idea, that it became the idea because originally it was only ever supposed to be one event. And the idea was that we would just invite a few people that we knew who had films and wanted to get them on at the BFI and just create that opportunity. As we put together the first event, it became really clear that it's like one event wasn't going to do it. Do you see what I mean? There was too many people. We couldn't fit them all into the event. And, you know, people couldn't make this date, but they were wondering if there was ever going to be another one and all of that sort of stuff. So what happened was an incredibly cool set of guys in the BFI's education department. So a massive shout out to Noel Goodwin and to Mark, they looked at the event and they said, this is good, you should do this more often.
Right.
And all they wanted in return is that maybe I would push a more diverse audience towards their youth program that they were running at the BFI South Bank. All they wanted for me was to take a bunch of people who were aspiring to be filmmakers, and ask that, and and suggest to them that maybe they wanted to go to an event for aspiring filmmakers. So it wasn't, it was, and I think they were really interested in kind of bringing in a different audience. And I think after that first event, they realized that it was possible, and that for not necessarily a huge amount of resources, and that we were able to do it. And all we did was literally, it was just word of mouth. It was like, okay, we rang people that we knew, and those people rang people that they knew, and sent out an email and all of that sort of stuff. And then gradually it just started to kind of gather a bit of momentum.
I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about your role as, inclusion and partnerships event exec in the BFI. Can you tell us a little bit about the day-to-day of that? I mean, I can imagine that it sort of varies quite a lot, and there's quite a lot of ground to cover. Can you give us a rough overview?
I work with really, really clever people who kind of really understand the kind of underlying mechanics of kind of exclusion. I work with Mel Hoyes, who's just a complete savant with regards to kind of data and using that data and interpreting that data and collecting data. And she comes, she has a real academic kind of a background, and she's kind of works to help us find ways of understanding what's going out in the world and quantifying that into kind of actionable kind of information. And then Jen is the kind of head of inclusion, and she just has this real way of kind of being able to bring people together and also kind of really shape ideas and shape ideas into kind of, again, actionable policy. And so what I do alongside them is support a lot of, what they get from all of that. Jen was instrumental in kind of developing the BFI's bullying and harassment policy. And then I will do things that help to kind of let people know that policy is a thing and how they can kind of use it or whatever. I'll create events. So, Jen came into the film industry from outside, from a different industry, and realized, hold on a minute, there's stuff that we could do to kind of informally support women. And so she'll kind of go, okay, right, I'm going to just pull together a group of women in the film industry, and I will help to kind of turn that into an actual event with a start time and canapes and and things like that. Or a lot of what I do is kind of what I call like dot connecting. Right. So I'll help people kind of go, okay, well, look, I want to find some money for a film. Okay, well, all right, what have you got? What are you doing? Okay, well, there's this here, and there's this, there's BFI Network, or there's the Film Fund, or there's these guys at Nowness who have kind of got a thing going on, or there's different places where you can maybe go to kind of get some money. And so I just kind of point, act as a kind of, almost like one of those policemen that stands in the middle of the street when the traffic lights fail and kind of directs people. I'm just a lot of the time, that's what I'm doing, is I'm directing the traffic. The money's over there, filmmakers, you go over there, or the talent's over here, commissioners, the talent's over there, go that way, do you see what I mean? And bringing that, so a lot of it is that sort of thing. And then other things is just practically finding ways to kind of, make things happen. So that might be everything from producing a video for the Press Reset campaign, or talking to Lucasfilm about where they might find, how they might recruit talent for a project that they've got on, or any number of producers and companies that are kind of looking to diversify their talent. I talk to a lot of those people a lot of the time. So it's a lot of talking. Mostly talking, and then occasionally rushing around trying to catch up with bits of paperwork or reply to emails that I should have done. Do you know what I mean? So that's what it is. It's like yakety yak yak yak, tappity tap tap tap, yakety yak yak, tappity tap tap tap. That's basically the job.
Yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about the time that we're currently speaking in now with you know, the time of coronavirus, the time of, you know, Black Lives Matter, and obviously everything that's going on in the States and closer to, you know, to where we are right now. And, you know, just talking about, you know, how you navigate the space of the film industry as a Black man. Now, you know, we kind of overlap in quite a number of ways, and there's not many Black men, and, you know, especially Black men. I mean, there's a few more Black women, but not many Black men are in this industry. How do you feel about that?
I suppose I've kind of gotten a lot of practice. You know, I went to a boys' school, so I was in school with a lot of Black men, and then when I went to do A levels, you know, I often found myself as the only Black person in the class. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Occasionally, and then when I went to university, I was literally the only Black person on my course. So you kind of pick up an ability to, people kind of refer to it as code switching. I don't know that it is, I don't know that I've ever done it as formally as that, but I think that as a kid, do you see what I mean? You go into situations and you do things, do you know what I mean? I spent a lot of time in the Scouts as a kid and the Cubs, and did a lot of things that, you know, were not necessarily typical for a little Black boy from Finsbury Park, like tying knots and camping out and, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Knife and axe badges and things like that. Do you see what I mean? So you kind of sometimes are aware that, like, okay, I'm the only Black person in this space, all right? So, you know, I have some responsibility to kind of carry the banner for all Black people and everything. You can sometimes feel that, but then you also kind of got to balance that out against doing, you know, being your own person and being your own individual. And then I've gone and had experiences where, like, my Blackness was not in the least bit special. Do you see what I mean? Like, you know, you know, when, you know, I was involved in the launch of One Extra.
Right.
And everybody was Black, and everybody was cooler than me and better dressed, and, do you know what I mean? And had flyer trainers and could mix records together. Do you know what I mean? It's like, okay, so I think it's that whole thing of kind of constantly swinging from, you know, from one thing to the other, to kind of, you know, in some situations seeming a bit cool, and then very quickly kind of being a bit of a nerd. My big tool, I guess, is by trying to diffuse everything with humor, and diffuse all of the stuff that I know from years of kind of different experiences, that some people will get a first impression of you or make a snap judgment based on how you look. And so often I'll try to diffuse all of that stuff with people very, very quickly, I suppose, is how I navigate it as a Black man. Do you see what I mean? So people expect you to be quick to anger, hot-headed, aggressive. Honestly, an honest to goodness trick that I use in important meetings is showing up in a bow tie. It's like, how can you be scared or intimidated by a dude in a bow tie? You can't. You just can't. Do you see what I mean? It's like, you know what I mean? You cannot argue that, like, you know what I mean? I didn't browbeat you or scare you into anything in a bow tie. All right? Do you know what I'm saying? And it's that sort of thing, you know what I'm saying? But that's what you navigate. So a lot of it, I knew going into certain spaces that people would think, oh, you don't belong here, or you're not qualified to be here. So I would always, do you see what I mean? I would rock a blazer or a jacket or whatever, and I would undercut whatever kind of preconception that you had of me, right? And then I would use humor to kind of get people on side. So I guess that's how I've navigated it, and ultimately not to think about it too much.
Myself and Tian, we are Parable. We are co-founders of the Soul Film Festival, as with a number of others. And I guess I wanted to talk about the importance of partnership and collaboration.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about what that means to you, and why is it so important?
I think it's really important for us because so often we're kind of set against one another. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And so it's really important, or try to kind of work in a way that instead of the whole kind of, you know, trying to find allies rather than adversaries, and realizing how, if you are able to do that, then you can achieve so much more at so much lower a cost. Do you see what I mean? Finding allies and is positive, and when it works, it lifts you up. There's nothing ever positive that comes out of fighting with people or being like, antagonizing people or whatever. So do you see what I mean? Or, working against people. Do you see what I mean? It's negative, you know what I mean? And trying to tear people down. Whereas kind of trying to collectively lift people up, it just makes more sense, because it's like you sleep better and everything feels better, and people, you know what I mean, smile when they see you and stuff like that. It just makes your life better. So, but also it's that whole thing of that collaborative thing just makes things that are beyond, brings things that are beyond your reach into your reach. Do you see what I mean? And I think if you're willing to put your ego to one side, there's a different type of power. Do you see what I mean? In terms of when you collaborate, that sort of thing of kind of going, you know what, actually, you got this now. Do you see what I mean? Or come and join me in this, or may I join you in that? May I support your journey, or come and support my journey, or let's go on a journey together. All of that, is much more positive and ultimately ends up in things that are bigger than you might have kind of, imagined. And I mean, like 2 years ago when we talked about first doing Soul, do you see what I mean? It's like, and then, you think about this year, early this year, when it looked like, a Soul festival wasn't going to be possible. And then, you get through August and we've kind of done things with Disney, Pixar, and Sony Pictures, and, and Rocks and all sorts of different things. Do you see what I mean? That you don't think are possible. But then once you kind of, I don't want to get too cheesy and filmy about it, but it's fill the dreams, baby. Do you know what I mean? If you build it, they will come. Absolutely. And that's the whole thing. But sometimes you can't build it on your own.
Yeah. So
and sometimes the version of it that you can build on your own just isn't as good.
And, I want to pick up on something, because I wonder if this is I don't want to say a problem, but I want to say kind of like a condition of, I guess, Black people in many different fields, but especially in film exhibition.
Sure.
I wonder if there is that mentality where there is a sense of that there can only be one sort of golden.
I mean, that
can kind of achieve these things, and
that comes all the time. That's in everything. That's everywhere. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Just what I mean. It's like, remember, like as a kid, there was only one female rapper at any given time.
Sure. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It was like, it was Salt and Pepper for a while, and then it was Queen Latifah for a while, and then for a nanosecond it was Moni Love, and then maybe, do you know what I mean? And then eventually it was Little Kim, and then it was Foxy Brown, and then, do you see what I mean? And it's only now that we're starting to see a situation where it's like, okay, multiple rappers, Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion, do you see what I mean? And it's always been like that. It always felt a bit like that. Do you see what I mean? It was like that whole news space. It was Trevor McDonald on his own for a long time. And I think it's definitely been a thing where in lots of different fields, not just film exhibition, but in all sorts of different fields, where there was a point where helping other Black people was hurting yourself as a Black person, because often organizations, kind of structures of power would only recognize one or a small group of people at any given time. And now what's happened is that I think because there has been this thing where the whole thing hasn't moved on. Do you see what I mean? Actually, Trevor McDonald didn't kind of necessarily, it didn't cause this immediate sea change in the way that people saw news reporters. And, Lenny Henry didn't cause this kind of thing where all of a sudden they were like kind of hiring loads more Black comedians or whatever. So what happened is that eventually we've all had to start kind of working out ways to kind of build each other up just to survive, Yeah,
most definitely. If you wanted to create a similar film festival, or like a platform for filmmakers to show their work, what kind of qualities might someone need like that to get something like that off the ground?
Basically, a simple vision is the first thing I think that you need. Is just like, don't try to do too much all at once. Do you know what I mean? All I promised people when we started Soul is come along and you'll see some films and there'll be a drink afterwards, and that was it. Do you see what I mean? and you know, and then you add a little and a little and finesse and iterate over time. But like, go for it. Have a simple vision of what it is that you want to do. All right. So if you wanted to kind of create something in the black film space, don't try to do all of blackness in one go. Start off with a initial. Start off with something that you can really kind of deal with or whatever. You know. So that'd be the first thing. I think get yourself a support network, because I know, like, you know, I mean, you know, basically Nura and I have done what we've done with Soul because basically Amy and Laura, that our partners, have helped us. Do you see what I mean? And supported us and believed in it and kind of allowed us to kind of keep it going. So I think, you know, make sure that before you get started that you've got the kind of support network that will kind of keep you going through the kind of bits where it just doesn't make sense to be doing what you're doing. You need to be open. You need to know that you don't know everything, but act sometimes like you do. Do you see what I mean?
Right.
Occasionally, you occasionally have to kind of go, trust me, I know what I'm doing. When sometimes you don't, and often you don't. Then it's just the basic stuff. Do you know what I mean? Kindness, empathy, a sort of rugged handsomeness that's kind of unconventional, but at the same time undeniable. You know, that sort of thing.
I definitely relate to that. Yeah.
Yeah. So you get what I'm talking about.
We understand. We get it.
Yeah, we get it. Do you see what I mean? I kind of like, you know, a strong collection of Jordans helps.
Yeah. With the bow tie, you can. It works.
That's snazzy bow tie. Do you know what I mean?
Iyare, thank you so much for your time today. It's been, it's been a revelation talking to you, as I knew it would. So thank you so much. So I've only got one question to finish up with, and it is a question that I'm asking everyone. It's, what pieces of advice would you give to someone who wants to explore a career either in diversity and inclusion, which is what you currently work in, or, you know, who wants to branch out and create a platform for filmmakers or something similar in that region? What advice would you give?
Right. So in terms of working in diversity and inclusion, I think the biggest thing that I've learned is that though you might understand diversity and inclusion from a particular angle, from your own angle, and though your experience may well overlap with lots of other types of experience, you don't know of. Do you see what I mean? It's like, you know, I spend a lot of time with black women. I can't speak for black women. I understand a lot of what they're going through, and I've seen it close hand, and a lot of their experiences mirror and kind of line up with my own, right? But the moment I start to think, well, I get it, I can talk for you, and I know what's best for you. That's when do you know what I mean? That's the moment where I jump the shark. All right. So if you want to be in inclusion, to understand, you know, just be open to the fact that, like, you won't be able to know everything, except that you don't know everything, and then go and seek those answers. All right. So that's the thing about inclusion that I would say, and diversity, and working in that area. And with regards to kind of building a platform, it's like the best advice is don't compete with me. No. Stay out of my way.
We'll do this over here.
Yeah, but I think the thing is collaborate, find allies, find people that share your kind of vision, have a vision, have a plan, and keep it simple, and build a little bit at a time. Do you see what I mean? I think, and then I think the most important thing that I've learned, and the thing that's sort of really sort of moved it for me, is find a way, a place in which you can be of service. Because that's the thing, for me, that's the thing that's made the difference. That's the thing that's kind of kicked it along. That's the thing that kind of, whenever I kind of use that as the way to kind of guide what I'm doing, how can I help? What can I how can I contribute? How can I lift up others? How can I make the world better for other people? Whenever I do that, that's when it happens. Do you see what I mean? And so that works for me. Do you see what I mean? But you've got to find the thing that works for you. Do you see what I mean? The thing that works for you might be the thing is being a selfish twat and only thinking about yourself. And if that works for you, then do that. But it doesn't work for me.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, let's finish it there. I mean, thank you, thank you so much for being a part of the film studio. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you.